Stitchless TV. Now previously on Stitchless TV I showed you a great way to finish off a vest top or a dress using ribbing to finish off the neck, and it gives a really professional finish. Today I'm going to show you how to finish off a vest top or a dress, this time using a facing quite similar to how I finished off this dress. Now when you're making your dress or your top, it is a good idea to just have something to start with. Now I really like the shape and size of this vest top, so I often use this as my starting point. I got my fabric yesterday from IKEA and it's a total bargain. It was only £6 a metre, and for this dress I'm using 2 metres. It's quite wide though, it's 140 wide. Now because I want to make my dress look a bit like the dress that I've got on, which has got kind of box pleats and pleats, I'm going to pleat my fabric first. So I'm just quickly going to go and do that, and then we'll begin the tutorial. So I've done my box pleats. Now I know you're going to say you're all frustrated because you want me to show you how to do box pleats, but that's another tutorial. But it is a good tip, because if you do the box pleats first in the fabric and then cut your shape out of it, it's such an easier way to get box pleats and then a curved neck. Would you like to see a close-up of my box pleats? Look. It's really, really easy. So I've just created all my pleats in my fabric first, like that. And then you simply get your top that you're going to be copying and lay it absolutely centered with your center pleat. So you lay it on top of your fabric. Now if you don't have box pleats, this is easy. Just lay it on top of your regular fabric. But what I would say is, if you're using a stretchy top, remember you're not using stretchy fabric, then allow extra length, so come up a bit higher here and a bit of extra width, and then just trace around it. I'm just going to be doing a front and a back that will be tracing out the front neck. So I've cut out my shape of my dress, the neckline of the dress, and I've changed it a little bit because of the shape of the neck that I actually want. But what you have to remember to do is add seam allowances, and for this dress we're coming out A-line at the sides. Now if you did do box pleats, if you did decide to do that, you've got to stay stitch around the edge, because otherwise those box pleats might come undone. So I've got 2 layers of fabric, just ordinary fabric that I'm going to use for my facing. Now for my lines I've sort of made an effort to kind of line up the lines, but you probably don't have to if you don't have lines. And then all that we do is just trace around our dress or our top exactly. Now if you have a front and a back that are different, then you have to do one for your front and one for your back, obviously. But my front and back are exactly the same. And then decide where it's going to finish. So I'm just going to have mine probably going straight across here, and then simply cut that out. So whatever's going to be the front of the dress, mark with an F, and then whatever's then going to be the corresponding front facing, mark with an F so that you know. And then do notches around the neck and around the armhole so that it lines up. So the first thing we need to do, we need to put our dress or our top right sides together, and then what I want you to do is I just want you to stitch up the side seams, both side seams, using a straight stitch. I'm putting my fabric right sides together, and I'm just going to start by going backwards and forwards to close off the seam. I'm going to line up all my lines, and my seam allowance is a large centimetre. So just stitch up both of those side seams. So when you've stitched up both sides, then you can trim them back and zigzag them, or if you've got an overlocker, then overlock them. So I'd like you to trim it back or overlock it to about 1/2 centimetre. After you've stitched up your side seams, you've overlocked them and you've pressed them towards the back, it will start to look like this. Now you do not stitch up the shoulders, that's very important. I've just pinned it here so that you can have a look at it. But you can see it's coming along very nicely. Now the next thing you need to do is to get both of your facings, put them right sides together. So I've got my facings right sides together, and whatever seam allowance you used for stitching up your side seams on the dress, you're going to stitch up both of the side seams of your facings. So both sides, same seam allowance as you used on your dress. So I've got my fabric right sides together, and I'm stitching up the side seam of the facing, and I'm going to use the same seam allowance, which was a large centimetre or 1/2 inch, that I used on the actual dress, and then do the same on the other side as well. So trim back and zigzag or overlock those edges as well, but then also you'll need to hem or zigzag, however you want to finish that hem of the facing as well, so the bottom bit of the facing. So when you've done that and you've pressed it as well towards the back, always towards the back, now you're going to be ready to add that facing onto your dress. Now remember, we still haven't stitched up our shoulder seams. I've put my facing inside out, and I'm just going to slip it over. I'm slipping it over the dress, and then I'm lining up the front with the front of the dress and matching up all of the notches. So I've got a notch there, I'm matching that up, and then I know that this notch matches up with the front. Now I'm going to start sewing at the front using a straight stitch and a 1/2 centimetre seam allowance, hardly anything. The reason why I'm starting in the middle of the front neck is because, I don't know if you've noticed, I don't use any pins, because for most jobs you don't need pins, but not all jobs obviously. You can rely upon the notches. So I've matched up my centre front notch. I'm going to go forwards and back, and I'm going to come around the bend, making sure that my next notch is lining up with the notch underneath. So I'm coming round, smoothly around the front of the neck, and then coming up to the shoulder. And then backwards and forwards at the end. And then all I do is, I'll turn over my fabric, and I'll start sewing. So I've turned over my fabric, and now I'm going to start sewing from the other side, still in the centre, and I'm going to come up to the other shoulder at the front. So still straight stitch, matching up notches, small seam allowance. See, look, I'm matching up those notches. Why do I need pins? And then with some sharp scissors, you need to snip into those curves so that they lay nice and flat, or you can just trim them back really tightly to the stitching. Now I want you to stitch your back facing to the back of the neck of your dress, using exactly the same method. Now all that you have to do is stitch around both of the armholes. We still haven't stitched up that shoulder seam, remember? So I would start at the side seam with your seams pressed towards the back, and line up your notches. See, look, we've got our notches there. And so from there to the shoulder, and then from there up to the other shoulder. But don't join the shoulders together yet. So don't forget to snip into those armholes, okay? Whenever you have a bend in sewing, a curve in sewing, you've always got to snip into it so that it lays nicely. Right, so now you've got to turn it the right way round. Now to do that, you need to push through your shoulders so you can have a good look at them. So that might take a little bit of time. Okay, this is how I do it. I get a bodkin, I push it through, I grab the end, and then slowly start peeling it. And then eventually you'll be able to pull it through. Right, now I want you to give them a good old press. Now usually when people add their facings, at this stage they would open it out a little bit, so you're just grabbing that seam allowance and the actual facing, and they would do a stitch that just goes along there, stitching only onto the facing, not onto the front, about 1 mil away from the edge, and they go all the way around the curves just to make sure that the fabric sits nicely and stays away from the curve. But I don't think I'm going to do it, and if I am, I can always do it afterwards. So they would do that around the armhole and around the necks. So how do we stitch up these shoulders? It's so easy, you'll be amazed. So what we do is we've got to turn one of our shoulder things back inside out again. So I think that probably calls for that bodkin tool. So I'm going to stick that in there, and I'm going to pull it inside out again. So I'm going to gently ease it down. So that's just one shoulder that I'm turning inside out. So you've pulled it inside out, and then what you need to do is you need to fold this over, and you've got to get that to go up inside the other one. So I'm going to get that bodkin thing again, and basically I'm going to pull it up. Now if you don't have a bodkin, I do hope it is actually called that, you could maybe attach a safety pin to the end, or just thread it with some thread. So I'm going to pull that up inside. Now you've got to really make sure that you haven't twisted it the wrong way round, and then you simply stitch across that little bit there using a straight stitch. So I'm just going to stitch across, back and forward, straight across. Look, so when it's finished, you end up with this perfect shoulder seam, all neatly finished. So let's see, so I'm going to pull it out now. I hope I didn't twist it. Oh, not so easy, I've got big knots. Okay, I'm not going to pull it, I'm going to ease it out very gently. Oh, nice, look, so I've done both shoulders. So look, it's as simple as that. So I've got all my facings on, I've finished off my shoulders really neatly. Now the other things that you need to do are, you need to do like a stay stitch to keep the facing stayed at the side. So just stitch in the well of the side seam, and you need to finish off your hem. So that's just pressing it up and a straight stitch. But you know what? I think I'm going to have to add some patch pockets at the side. I really, really love it. Now, if you have a go at facings, of putting facings on a vest top or a dress, I really would love to see them. So post them on my Facebook page, Stitchless TV Sewing Channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you again really soon. Bye.